is a really challenging question that I've had to think about quite a lot actually, which means it's a good question, because if you've got to think about the answer, then you know it's a good question. Let's go back a little bit first of all. I think that all knowledge is open. Thomas Jefferson told us that a long time ago, and knowledge is what we call a complementary good rather than a competitive good. In other words, the more you have of it, the better it is. It's not a scarce resource that you've got to limit in some sort of way. So by definition, all good knowledge is open knowledge because it's shared widely, and by being shared widely, it picks up value, it attracts more knowledge, and we gain more understanding. So I think academic practice, the best academic practice, is open anyway, because it opens you up to all sorts of other possibilities. Now, a good example is in a teaching environment where you realise that you've got huge benefits of, let's say, an international class. You know, you've got a group of students in the room. They could be on any course in the university. There's 20 of them. They turn out to come from 3 different continents and have different views on the issues from their perspective. Now, it would be a very foolish teacher who didn't draw out the value of that difference in the discussion that you're going to have in the class, and that's opening up opportunities to bring in different sorts of perspectives. So for me, it's about that. It's not necessarily just about international, it's about reaching down into the deep experience of colleagues and students. So, for example, students who have been born and brought up in inner city environments around Manchester are going to have a very particular perspective on their life, their perspective, what they're trying to achieve in their education. Again, drawing that out in the learning experience is part of an open educational practice. I've touched on some of the benefits already. I mean, just the process of opening up the classroom discussion is going to bring in a huge amount of experience. And I think that word experience is the first key benefit, because of course, and I'm a great believer in experiential learning, and of course many other people have done a great deal of work on this. But if you create an open environment and you provide the opportunity through your teaching practice and the learning environment for people participating, your students, your colleagues, to think a little bit about how the theoretical knowledge they're learning about relates to their own experience in life, you are bringing in through openness all of that wealth of experience. And of course we all have educational prior experiences that are relevant to our learning journeys. So a huge benefit is simply the amount of material that comes in, and that gives life to the curriculum. So rather than dry textbook learning that's just repeating some other perspective that's come through the textbook, or a simple overdependence on web-based resources and what other people think, you are beginning to draw in really rich and relevant content. So that's a huge benefit. The second issue that I'd stress, I think we could go on for a long time about the benefits, but a second issue that I'd stress is that our problem today is not that we're short information, it's that we're totally swamped with information. The estimate is in 2020 the world will be producing 35 zettabytes of new information every year. Of course everybody knows what a zettabyte is, but in case you've forgotten, a zettabyte is 1,000,000 terabytes, and a terabyte is the thing that you can carry in your handbag that will contain absolutely everything you could ever conceivably write, think or see in your lifetime. So we're swamped with information that's available to us. Openness helps us to navigate that because it begins to define relevance. So as, for example, in a class, and let's say, for instance, that you've got a group of students in that class who've experienced the Arab Spring across the Middle East. They're relating their experience into the class. Now, most of us who are not intimately involved in that environment would find it very difficult to navigate through these massive sources of digital information. By openness, by drawing our students in as interpreters, we can begin to find pathways through these mazes of information that we have out there. Opportunities always come with challenges. You know, they're difficult to do. I mean, one of the challenges, of course, is matching open educational content to formal curriculum requirement. I mean, to put it bluntly, the students have got to pass the exam, and if the examination is set outside the university by a board, for example, they've got to pass other people's examinations. So one of the challenges is marrying together the openness of content with the need for curriculum. Curriculum, of course, is something cumulative. It quite appropriately has prerequisites. We have to learn things in certain orders. If we don't, we find it difficult to interpret the subsequent references. So quite clearly, in chemistry, you've got to learn the table of elements before you can progress in chemistry. If you're going to understand, for example, science fiction, you really have to have studied the Gothic novel first, because the references back from science fiction to the Gothic novel describe that. Now, one of the challenges with openness is maintaining curriculum coherence, not for the sakes of rules and regulations, but for the sake of getting coherence into the knowledge experience. So that I think is an issue. There are challenges with scaling up. I mean, people with MOOCs are heroically trying to do open education. The jury's out yet about whether you can achieve that with 40,000 students and 4 or 5 lecturers sitting behind a video camera once a week. I'm not sure that you can, and I think in that sort of situation, the very openness, the massive nature of that tends to go towards swamping the course, swamping the educational experience. So there's a danger of lack of focus, of misdirection, of being swamped. By and large, though, I would say that it's always good to go for the opportunities rather than to be daunted by the challenges. We've always had challenges in educational provision. We've all had to work with new technologies that are challenging. We all have to work in challenging situations. So I wouldn't want anybody not to try it because they're put off by what seemed to be a challenge. The most important thing is that the students are fired up. They're making some sort of step change in their comprehension. The staff are fired up, and it's a great learning experience. I always think a good challenge, if you're thinking about your educational provision in general, but particularly when you're thinking about experiential learning or this particular topic about openness, is to reflect back on your own life story a little bit, your own biography, and to put yourself in that position and look at yourself as an experiential learner. So imagine yourself in the position of a learner rather than a teacher, and think about how your experience as a person, your life journey, has actually intersected with the formal learning experiences. What is it that you bring in as a teacher? And if you were a student, how would you expect that to be used? Because I think that helps us to understand how we can get coherence into this. What I found when I've done these exercises, and I had to do it quite recently, is that you always quite surprise yourself when you think about that. And when you think about where your own experiences that you're bringing into the classroom actually came from. And they can come from quite surprising places. I mean, you might have gone on an exotic holiday somewhere, which had nothing to do with what you're teaching. But things that you saw there might have stimulated you to bring those into the classroom. You might have gone to a great art exhibition, again, nothing particularly with what you're teaching, but that experience of openness brought something into the way that you work with your class. And I think if we personalize it and humanize it in ourselves and understand that, we can get a sense of it. So my challenge would be, look at it biographically, look back on your own journey as a person, and where have you brought open practice in to your development as a teacher.